A civil society group on oil and gas is pushing for the suspension of the Agyapa Royalties Deal because of what it says is a lack of transparency. The group, which is made up of 15 civil society organizations under the banner Alliance for CSOs, say the current structure of the deal will rather hurt the economy. Campaign coordinator for ICEDEC, Steve Mantia, addressed a news conference in Accra.
The opaque manner in which the Act is being implemented, the relatively weak transparency and public oversight arrangements, and the haste with which the government is running to the market, in spite of concerns being raised by a broad spectrum of the Ghanaian populace, do not engender public trust and consensus building around matters of public policy as important as this one. This approach rather raises moral and governance questions. The assumption that once everything goes through Parliament, it is above board and represents the interests of all Ghanaians is deceptive and turns democracy on its head. It makes the elected the only relevant stakeholders in policymaking. And as former US President Barack Obama once noted, it wrongly assumes that democracy is a transaction to be executed between leaders and the people only at elections. Ladies and gentlemen, Ghanaians will probably not have lost sleep over this Agyapa mineral income investment transaction if it had been orchestrated under an open and transparent regime such as the Petroleum Revenue Management Act provides. Indeed, what the government is intending to do with our mineral royalties would not have been permissible under the Petroleum Revenue Management Act. For instance, Section 5 of the Act prohibits the use of Petroleum Holding Fund, which includes royalties, as collateral for borrowing. And this is what exactly we are trying to do with our mineral royalty. It also prohibits borrowing against the country's petroleum reserves, which sadly is what the Minerals Income Investment Fund seeks to do. Ladies and gentlemen, we are happy to engage, as always, to learn, debate, and challenge government on ways to optimize the mineral royalties if government is willing to activate those democratic channels. Those who have divergent views are equal stakeholders in the mineral revenue. Therefore, attempts to disregard dissenting views is most unfortunate, as they defy the principle of participatory decision-making, which forms the bedrock of democratic practice. We take this opportunity to call on His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo to, 1, acknowledge that though the Minerals Income Investment Fund and its special purpose vehicle may be legal without public input, it fundamentally goes against his pact with the Ghanaian people, particularly the mining communities, to cede 20% of mineral royalties to develop the communities.
Now, joining me for more on this is the Executive Director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy, Ben Boakye. Thank you very much, Mr. Boakye, for making time to speak with us. Now, a lot has been said about this deal, quite controversial. But my question is there any good at all in this deal?
Thanks, Israel. I think that's the struggle of everybody, to really understand what is really good about it. It raises a lot of questions. And it's essentially what government is trying to do is to cede up to 49% of the royalties of the major concessions of this country to the private sector or to the stock market. So once that is ceded, we should understand that we have hived, 49% or so of our resources to them. And we don't, as of now, know how much the market is offering that share. And resource that is much, much stable than many other revenue sources. If you look at the trend in the international market today, crude oil has collapsed, but gold has gained about 30% addition in value over the period. So if you are sacrificing over $200 million cash flow for a stake on the market, you have to tell the Ghanaian people how much you're going to generate, how you're going to use what you are generating. What investment is Agyapa going to do? In fact, who are the people who are managing Agyapa? And those questions have to be provided for us to be sure that this is a vehicle that is actually going to benefit Ghana and not some people. Again, the reason why we have royalty is to ensure that at least, at the minimum, the country can get some revenue from the exploitation of its resources. If you sacrifice that and you subject that to investment, which also introduces risk to that revenue, then you are eroding the actual essence of having royalty in the fiscal regime of the mines. So there are a lot of questions that ought to be answered for us to be sure that there are actual benefits in this. I mean, you may raise $200–300 million now, but would that compare to the benefit that would accrue to the country if we did not take this step? Because like I mentioned, you have a revenue stream of about $200 million per annum. Why would you sacrifice that for anything below $1 billion? So these are the conversations and the questions that we are asking at this point to be clear.
Mr. Boakye,
what decision government is taking.
So what we've heard from the CSOs is that this deal should be suspended entirely. Now, do you want to just suspend it and scrapped entirely, or would you want some amendments to be made, or if your questions were answered, will that convince you?
I think the essential part is that we have to stop and rethink the whole conversation to see how can we better utilize our mineral resources, our mineral royalty. Are there options that are better than listing it on the stock exchange? And those things will come out when there is a broader consultation and conversation around the utilization of the revenue. And we don't think that has happened yet. And through that consultation and open and transparent engagement, we will decide as a country where we want to go with our mineral resources.
Now, Parliament has approved the deal. That's parliamentary approval, don't mean anything.
I think consistently, Parliament has shown that they are not open to engagement. They don't want to engage on some of these critical conversations that should be broad. If you are signing off 49% of the royalties of a country and you didn't see it fit to engage relevant stakeholders, then you actually renege on your duty. And I think essentially that's what Parliament did. And that is why Parliament itself today is fighting, because they didn't thoroughly look at the agreement to see that there could be challenges with the agreement, where we are now even saying that Agyapa can hide in a tax haven, operate in Ghana, and will not pay tax to the Ghanaian government. I mean, how did that skip the eyes of parliamentarians? And these are the questions and demands that we have to place at the doorstep of our Parliament, for them to up their game and engage the public to deepen democracy and not pretend or assume that whatever decision they take is sacrosanct and does not require engagement with the public.
All right, thank you very much, Ben Boakye. Ben Boakye is the Executive Director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy.